Talking with the experts.
In episode 347, Richard Blank discusses with us how we can learn about leadership and strong corporate culture in the call centre space.
That's an excellent question, Rose. I always believe it starts with the ethics. The center should have never had that campaign to begin with. Agents shouldn't accept it to make those calls. There's 1,000 ways to earn a living, and you can do it through telemarketing, inbound or outbound support. It's a seller's market. If someone has talent and skill, they have a choice. So, and company will not exist if people do not show up to make those calls. So maybe it's an honor amongst thieves. But to me here, I'm in a very strict Catholic country. So I have to ensure that the agents can go home and tell their parents what they do for a living. So me personally, Rose, I prefer to do things to where I don't compromise their ethics, values, and mores. And I'm very selective of the campaigns that come in. But, you know, Hollywood, they embellish and they like to glorify the Wolf of Wall Street. Glengarry.
Hello and welcome to Talking with the Experts. I'm your host, Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. Talking with the Experts is about all things business by business owners for business owners. You can find it on all good podcasting streaming platforms and on YouTube. Now, there is in the world a misconception about call centres and, you know, the leadership that's required to go into this, how they've built a strong corporate structure, outsourcing to a call centre and becoming successful in the call centre space. My next guest, Richard Blank, is a CEO of a call centre in Costa Rica. I don't think that's any reflection on anything. I'm just making you aware of what country he's in. And Richard is, his journey started in the call centre space, filled with twists and turns, and I'm sure we'll learn about those. When he was 27, he relocated to Costa Rica to train employees for one of the largest call centres in San Jose. With a mix of motivational public speaking style backed by tactful and appropriate rhetoric, Richard shared his knowledge and trained over 10,000 bilingual telemarketers. And I'd love to hear that story. Richard, it's a great pleasure to introduce you to my guests. Welcome.
Oh, Rose, the pleasure is mine. Thank you so much for having me here as a guest on your show, Talking with the Experts.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Now, tell me a little bit about your background and why you went to train in a call center.
Oof, well, my background goes way back to Northeast Philadelphia, where I was born and raised. When I graduated the proud Abington High School in '91, instead of choosing to go to law school or medical school, architecture or engineering, I decided to double down on languages. That was my favorite class. I believed it could make me marketable. And unlike some of the pressures that I had to choose predestined careers, and a lot of opinions that are provided for you, decided to be a romantic and to take a chance. And so I went to the University of Arizona in Southwest United States. It was beautiful in the desert. And I was a Spanish communication major. During college, I interned for Telemundo, post-grad sold beer for Corona, the importers. And when I was 27 years old, Rose, I was given a 1 in a million opportunity to move to Central America and work at my friend's call center for just a couple months, just to teach English. Well, if you can get past your parents' guilt, you could live anywhere in the world. And I decided to take a chance. And, you know, 2 months turned into working with my friend's center for 4 years. I learned the business, Rose, from the inside and out, not at sea level, but I sat with the local Costa Rican ticos. I was in cubicles. I was breaking bread with them. And I saw the good and the bad. And what I did realize in this industry and many other verticals, that people feel like robots. They feel expendable. They don't have their dignity. And knowing that if I ever had the opportunity to start a company, I was going to extend as much empathy as I could towards individuals to reduce attrition, to increase in their fulfillment, and once again, to be able to build a sort of foundation structure so I could grow upon that. I could promote people, I could expand. And once again, I've been here for 22 years. It's been an amazing journey. I'm almost celebrating my 15th year in business. We currently have 150 agents. I do have a 300 seat capacity center. And so I have room to grow. But the most important thing is that if you have a passion towards something, honorable intentions and good faith, by all means, I think you should go for it. And there really wasn't a blueprint, Rose, on starting a call center or being a CEO of a call center. So I kind of fell into it, but I love the art of speech. I know that today most people do texting and emails. And when I see someone engaged on a phone call using very choice vocabulary, converting a call, getting the sort of feedback to where businesses grow, I think it's a beautiful thing. And if somebody has those skills, naturally their earnings potential is limitless.
Mm. Your call centers have such a disreputable reputation. Yeah, we were discussing that before we started today. Um,
Yes.
um, and, I think because, they trained to the hard sell. You've got the ones that from call centers that are, selling raffle tickets to whatever charity, and it's like a hard sell, or they try to sell you insurance, I mean, I know it's their job, but how can call centers be more mindful of their customer expectation and customer journey?
That's an excellent question, Rose. I always believe it starts with the ethics. The center should have never had that campaign to begin with. Agents shouldn't accept it to make those calls. There's 1,000 ways to earn a living, and you can do it through telemarketing, inbound or outbound support. It's a seller's market. If someone has talent and skill, they have a choice. So, and company will not exist if people do not show up to make those calls. So maybe it's an honor amongst thieves. But to me here, I'm in a very strict Catholic country. So I have to ensure that the agents can go home and tell their parents what they do for a living. So me personally, Rose, I prefer to do things to where I don't compromise their ethics, values, and mores. And I'm very selective of the campaigns that come in. But Hollywood, they embellish and they like to glorify the Wolf of Wall Street, Glengarry, Glen Ross, Boiler Room, The Prime Gig. There are so many movies out there that show the art of speech and these people with incredible speaking skills and convincing skills in the rhetoric. And it's almost like fire. You could use it for warmth and for health and for support, but other people use it to burn. And so these are some of the skills that I was hoping that individuals would use for good. But sometimes greed gets in the way. As I mentioned before, people with a lot of talent have earnings potential. It just so depends on what they choose to do with it. But at my center here, we have some agents that have been with me over a decade. And the fact that they have decided to invest that time and effort with me is very humbling. And so, as much as I've done very well, and I can pat myself on the back on many different areas of what I've accomplished, my main goal, besides being a guest in this country, was to see how many families I could feed. And so, when you start a business, there is that sort of responsibility, not just for myself, but to ensure that salaries and benefits are paid, that lights are still turned on, and that I'm doing what I need to do on my end in order to ensure job stability. And so that is one of the things I'd like to maybe shatter some misconceptions in regards to what call centers do. And in Costa Rica, Amazon is here, HP, Intel, and Oracle. So, I mean, Amazon, for an example, hires thousands of agents. People earn a very good living there. And so you can't judge an entire industry on these calls that you receive at dinner. You had mentioned before this podcast the numerous phone calls you and your husband receive that could be very deceiving. And so my suggestion is to always do your due diligence, follow up on that, and not agree to anything, especially if you're getting some sort of prospecting cold call. But then on the flip side, you and I know a lot of people that do inbound support. They might be working for another vertical that has to make outbound prospecting calls, call distributors, speak to other individuals in order to ensure that a sale is made. And so most people today, Rose, are doing things that are non-voice. They prefer chat and email. I believe in the art of speech. There's a very good chance to retain a client, to do an upsell, maybe get a referral. And how about this? Worst case scenario, let's say you and I lose a client. Maybe they're kind enough to give us an exit interview, and we could find ways that you and I could improve or what our competition had done in order to earn their business. So I want your audience to know that, A, I'll never call them during dinner. If I do, you and I can't be friends anymore. But there are a lot of reputable call centers out there where it is a means to an end. It's still something that is able to produce business and retain clients and to build companies. And so once again, I believe that I'm able to represent this industry in the best light.
Yeah, my son worked for a call center for about 6 months
Uh,
on the Gold Coast here in Australia, and he started off liking it. It was mainly selling raffle tickets, for charities and whatever. But in the end, it was like if he didn't get a sale, he'd get into trouble. Is that, a normal practice? Because these people work obviously on percentage from the charity, on how many tickets they sell or have books of tickets. So is that the normal in the industry, or is it just like a one-off sort of thing?
No, Rose, it depends on the company culture. Naturally, any sort of industry follows metrics. So they kind of want to see how many calls you make, how many people you spoke to, how many calls you converted into a sale. And so you can gauge over a certain period of time if this individual is making the amount of calls that you need, they're following the script. We have a quality control department. So let's just say somebody is off, not finding their rhythm or just not in their certain mindset. We are capable of coaching them through certain resources. But I tell you what, if somebody is putting some additional pressure on you to make a sale, what it's going to do is going to uh, realign you into pressuring somebody. Your tone will be off. You'll have a sense of urgency, maybe a sort of taste of desperation that will come through on the phone. And so your son, unfortunately, chose a campaign that might be very stressful and has a lot of expectations to it. Possibly, if he was on another campaign, this is something where instead of just surviving, he could have thrived and then grew like myself, not to maybe own a call center, but possibly been a trainer, a supervisor, or a top producer where they can earn that way. And so, you know, you do need to have some sort of structure here. So the agents need to know where the bar is and what the pace is, because a lot of call centers use a predictive dialer. So regardless, these calls are dialing 3 to 5 lines at one time. So once you put yourself in ready status, a call's picking up again. It's incredible in regards to performance, but if you're not prepared for it or built up the endurance for it, you could burn out or it could seem overwhelming. But this sort of technology makes it easier for you because when you're manually dialing, you get exhausted, you misdial, and your production is probably a fourth of what you're capable of doing. But no, I believe with the proper supervision, with the right resources, realistic expectations, a very good list, a quality assurance department that will be able to support you, I think that the majority of campaigns could be successful with those sort of ducks that are lined up in a row.
Mm, I agree. He got burnt out in the end because you know th- there was just a lot of expectation on him to deliver a certain number of sales every day, and if he didn't meet that quota, he'd get into trouble. And he just felt that um, he wasn't doing his job correctly. But I mean, and you're right, his tone had changed, and he became, I guess, a little bit more aggressive in the sales process than was needed because he felt that he was under pressure to have to make these sales. Is that how you see call center agents, being under pressure?
You can handle the pressure. It's just simple physics. It's almost like using a wheelbarrow instead of carrying all the wood to your fire. There are certain ways to adjust that sort of volume. I believe that if somebody is forthright on a call, and let's say we're making outbound prospecting phone calls to a business, there's a very good way to engage the gatekeeper, to ingratiate, to give a positive escalation, to give a company name spike prior to even introducing yourself, to show the sort of energy and tone. I believe active listening is extremely important because you are able to clarify information. People aren't repeating and you could avoid any sort of rabbit holes by repeating information with the military alphabet. enables you to pronounce a last name properly, to not have an email bounce back, or just to even confirm addresses. Sometimes people do hedging. So if they do give you an answer, they'll just say great, okay, or just move on. And sometimes that is not the correct answer. You need to show empathy from time to time, or really have common sense, where you might want to repeat something in a neutral tone and then just move on and thank them for it. And so, Rose, these are sort of soft skills, not to guarantee the call, but I can increase your odds by reducing any sort of ego defense and possibly, my friend, allowing you the pass to pitch. Not saying you're going to hit it out of the park, but you should at least get 15 rounds in the ring, just to at least make your case.
Yeah.
And if worst case scenario through default, somebody doesn't move forward with you, but at least I said your name multiple times, I got to know who you were, I did some active listening, I made some suggestions. And maybe that's just a romantic death, where if you do not get the sale, but if you did everything correctly, almost like a blackjack player, you could play the hand perfectly, but still there are certain odds that are against you. I respect that art. And so, as you mentioned, your son came into this with such vigor and was ready to go. And unfortunately, not only did he burn out, but it put a bad taste in his mouth. So, Rose, if it was the right bus and right seat, if he was on a different type of campaign, maybe the natural Rose's son would have come out and it would have been more of an easier performance than something that is pressed. And so that's why I was mentioning earlier about being very selective of the campaigns, because I want to feel comfortable making the calls. I don't want to do something gray area or illegal. And once again, these individuals, they have a choice and they need to feel proud about themselves. They're going to have to make the calls. Rose, they got to look at themselves in the mirror at the end of the day and realize that they're doing something all right and okay and assisting others. And for me, it was very easy. As much as I would like to grow, I wanted to grow properly. I didn't want one thing to ruin either my reputation or my own way that I saw myself. I don't want to sell my soul for $1. It's just not that important for me. It's more important that I can feel good about what I do and that I'm able to. You're not in business for 15 years if you're doing something wrong. You'll have a bad reputation. No one will come back. You'll lose all your clients. And so maybe it's the tortoise and not the hare. You go slow and steady. You save your money. You don't overextend yourself. You can weather any storms, and you can also be very selective. So you don't need to be forced to take something to pay for your lights. And I know you see this sort of emotion that comes out of me, and that's okay, because I want your audience to know that a lot of companies out there do the right things. And there are individuals that do feel good about what they do, where they can save an account, save you money, make a certain suggestion, and keep you as a client where you start recommending that business to others. And so, but also finally, it is a skill. If you do practice your rhetoric, if you record yourself, if you do understand interpersonal communication and how to handle these things outside of the office, you will have some of the most incredible relationships. You could save a marriage, you could save a best friend. And so these are the sort of skills that I'm hoping that can go and work with their lives outside the office, which may affect their performance here. So there is that sort of circle that I do take into consideration.
Yeah, it would be very important to have, very good training to work in a call center, I would think. I mean, because you need to have those communication skills, and you need to have, great communication skills, I would think, to be in a call center.
Sure. Most of the training, Rose, is just the CRM system and how to use the headset. Maybe some role playing and glossary of terms if it's a new industry you've never seen before. But let me put it this way, you and I, we have personalities. I could put you on the phone after training you how to use the headset. Rose, you would be phenomenal. I mean, you're a character. And so I think that when people come into this without any call center experience, what does that do for me? They're not bringing in bad habits. They could be a squire to my knight. I can mold them. I could work with them and give them the sort of confidence for their self-reliance so they would be able to grow and thrive here. But I guess maybe if it's just timing and maybe the fluctuation and the proper pausing and when to ask a tie down or rebuttal or a clarification question, sure, those things can be taught, but a smile and a good personality and someone that if they hear a dog in the background might ask the dog's name and talk about that for a couple minutes, I find that to be brilliant. That person's in the zone. You can almost put what you're selling away, talk for a couple minutes about Australia and how much I love your continent. Next thing you know, go, why were you calling again? Because you like me so much. I can just jump right back into what I was discussing earlier because I got the past the pitch that you liked me. You said my name. You're using Richard now. And so I realized that I could anchor you. It's almost like rock climbing. I got a grip. I can put the other hand on it and start pulling myself up. And people just do desert pitching rows. They talk for 5 minutes without an oasis, no resting, no water, no reinforcement. It's a lecture, it's not a conversation. And so people are afraid to be hung up on. But my friend, we get hung up on for a living. If you're a boxer, you take one in the chin. And if you realize that you are doing the right thing and you're giving these people a proper performance, don't be surprised if your numbers are good and your conversations last longer. That's the sort of results that you'll see, like in a gym, if you work out. You see certain disposition reports from our dialer where your talk time increases, your amount of calls decrease because you're speaking with more people. So if you yell at me and say, Richard, make 100 calls a day, Rose, I make about 85 calls a day, but I'm speaking to more people and I'm closing more deals. So you can't put me on this sort of stringent and sort of way where you have no wiggle room. Artists need to have a zig and a zag. There's always a 10% variable that happens on a call that you're just not expecting. And almost like an actor or a comedian that can think on their feet and be spontaneous. I think those are the individuals that are genius.
So call centers are normally thought of as selling something like raffle tickets or insurance or whatever.
Okay.
But what else do call centers do? What does your call center do?
We do many different accounts, outbound calls for sales, appointment setting, lead gen, but a lot of the calls, Rose, are inbound customer support and back office non-voice support. For an example, I have a law firm that I work with. It's for disability and wrongful termination, and we have intake coordinators. So these individuals will be receiving phone calls from individuals and listening to what happened at their office, why they got fired, letting them vent, asking certain questions, and then transferring them to an attorney. I also have another account. Both of these accounts have been with me over a decade. It's for inbound support for movies and music. The average demographic is 55 plus female. So imagine these individuals receiving a couple times a year a big phone book size catalog with movies and music from all different eras. And so they will call up, they will confirm who the account is. And the next thing you know, Rose, you're asking me for Humphrey Bogart movies, Steve McQueen and certain other things that you enjoy, Elvis Presley. And so what we do is we will confirm it, we will make suggestions, we will send it off to you and get excited for you, because a lot of the clients like to tell us on the first time they went on a date at a drive-in theater back in 1960 and saw this movie and now they want to buy it. So of course you got to listen to it and you put in the notes section, it's their anniversary with their husband, that was their first date, and it's fascinating. And how about if you need to call your energy company, your water company, your cable company, your phone company, your mechanic? I mean, these are individuals at these call centers that may be receiving the calls to assist you as well. I personally do not like the non-voice. I know that it's a means to an end, and we do work in non-voice back office support, omni-channel support. But to me, there is a lot of miscommunication. There is latency. And I've seen that when people finally get somebody on the phone, they're so excited, they pop and they come in guns a-blazing because they haven't spoken to someone, they get the results of miscommunication. And so as much as you think it's saving money and it's assisting your company scale. On the flip side, a lot of people just press 0 and would love to speak to somebody because it makes them feel better and can get a faster resolution.
Oh, don't you just hate? Press 2 if you want to speak to this person, or press 3. I hate those automated systems. I think they're horrible. There's no personality to them. There's no personal contact. There's no good customer service. I think it's terrible customer service. I'd rather speak to somebody first off from the very first time they pick up the phone.
Yes, ma'am. I agree with you 100%. And so I stress that to my clients. I always want to have a support department that's live. They'll be able to take their calls.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the worst thing that was ever invented.
I could probably name 2 or 3 other things that are worse than that, but I do agree with you. If you are frustrated, pressing 0 is bad. They claim that if you curse in the recording, sometimes you get transferred quicker, or press
Have you
other
tried
different.
that?
Well, of course we do. And but I've learned a lesson. I've learned a lesson that if you don't get through where you need to, and you start pressing other departments and you get sent to other departments, even though it's not the individual that can help you and will retransfer you, best thing is to write that name down. Because when you finally get that decision maker on the phone or someone that will assist you, mention the others that have helped you along the way. Give them a verbal and a written positive escalation. I've seen upgrades in regards to airlines. Banks have taken away fees. And also there are certain companies that will take that into consideration and put it in their notes section that I complimented Rose before I got transferred to the owner of a company because she assisted me. And you will get benefits. They will take you into consideration. I've seen so much better support because I had mentioned individuals a certain way. And imagine if you had worked with somebody for years and then all of a sudden they get promoted. Now you have a direct line to a supervisor or a manager that you supported along the way by writing their supervisors on how great they were. So it's paying it forward. And it definitely comes around and assists you in the long run.
Oh, yes, I'm all for paying it forward. I love paying it forward to others. I think it's one of the greatest things that you can do as a human.
Well, success is built on a million thank yous. How many times have you and I been given second chances? And so us being in certain positions of leverage, it's very nice for us to extend that sort of courtesy towards people.
Absolutely. Richard, it has been an absolute pleasure. Where can people find you if they want to know more about the call center or just have a chat with you?
I'd love for them to buy a first class plane ticket and come visit me here in sunny Central America, Costa Rica, or they can look me up on our Facebook fan page, where once this goes live, Rose, I cannot wait to put our interview there. I have 101,000 local Costa Rican ticos, so you'll get thousands of new fans, and it will give your audience a real idea of the pulse of the business process outsourcing industry in Central America. Just real quick, it's a final exam question here. We're north of Panama, south of Nicaragua. We're the only democratic society in Central America. There's no standing army. So they put all of our money back into education. There's a 95% literacy rate. We have the best infrastructure, the most neutral accent in regards to Latin America. I mentioned the sort of companies that are here. We're known for ecotourism. So if you love waterfalls, butterflies, beaches, zip lining, iguanas and monkeys, exotic fruit, this is definitely the place to be. And I'm here. I got plenty of suggestions to make for you and your amazing audience.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Richard, in closing, have you got anything you'd like to share with our audience today?
Yes, ma'am. 2 things. First is I just want to let you know that I am the #1 In Excess fan in Costa Rica, my favorite band of all time. In fact, I saw them twice, in '87 in Philadelphia, but I saw a really special show. It was July 15th of '97 in Phoenix at Union Hall. I paid $100 for a $20 ticket. I got front row center. And this is an In Excess show. They had no security there, so the stage was right here. And I was fortunate enough to shake the hand of the late Michael Hutchins and John Farrar. So I just want to let you know that your continent produced the greatest rock band of all time. That's #1. And #2, fortune favors the brave. I believe that everyone always wanted to leave a castle and slay a dragon to save a princess and be a prince. And so there's a lot of naysayers and gray believers out there. And these are individuals that love you and support you. But from time to time, dreamers need to walk alone. And if you have something in you where you know that you're being gravitated towards this, by all means, I think you should drink life and take your chance. And Rose, I cannot thank you enough for being on this podcast. Your audience should only know the couple times we had to reschedule because I was so eager to be on here. And I know that there was a conflict in our schedule, which was fine. But I'm so excited to have shared these ideas with you and your audience because I love the work that you do, Rose. And that's why I took the liberty of reaching out to you and letting you know that I would love to have been on your show.
Oh, Richard, you're so sweet. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I will talk to you soon. You have a good evening.
You too, ma'am. Thank you again.
You've been listening to Talking with the Experts, hosted by Rose Davidson. Make sure you have a look at our back catalogue over at talkingwiththeexperts.com. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any episode. We look forward to your company next time. Talking with the Experts.